On January 28, 2025, President Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, proposed a plan to implement universal tariffs on U.S. imports. The proposal suggests starting with a 2.5% tariff, increasing by the same amount each month, potentially reaching as high as 20%. The goal of this strategy is to give businesses and countries time to adjust and renegotiate trade terms. However, President Trump has expressed a preference for more aggressive tariffs, particularly targeting imports of computer chips, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. He has criticized current subsidies and suggested that higher tariffs could discourage imports and encourage domestic production. These proposed tariffs are expected to be much higher than the initial 2.5%. Since taking office on January 20, 2025, President Trump has quickly introduced a range of tariffs aimed at major U.S. trading partners, especially Canada, Mexico, and China. These actions are part of his administration's broader plan to address issues like illegal immigration, drug trafficking, and trade imbalances. The Trump administration has already imposed tariffs on several countries, including key allies. On his inauguration day, President Trump announced a 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico, defending the move as crucial to combat illegal immigration and the surge of drugs, particularly fentanyl, entering the U.S. These tariffs are set to take effect on February 1, 2025. Canada strongly opposes these tariffs, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arguing that they would harm both the Canadian economy and American consumers and businesses. Trudeau emphasized the importance of maintaining a strong economic relationship and suggested that Canada may consider retaliatory measures. Additionally, Canada has broadened its efforts, seeking collaboration with international partners like the European Union, Denmark, and Mexico to craft a coordinated response. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly has announced plans to engage with her counterparts in allied nations to develop a unified strategy. Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, a leading candidate to succeed Trudeau as Prime Minister, has proposed convening an international summit involving leaders from Mexico, Denmark, Panama, and the EU to coordinate a joint response to U.S. tariff threats. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum also criticized the tariffs, arguing they would not effectively solve immigration or drug trafficking issues and could strain diplomatic relations between the U.S. and
President Trump has also suggested a 10% tariff on all imports from China, citing the country's role in producing and distributing fentanyl. This tariff, which is also scheduled to take effect on February 1, 2025, has been met with a response from China, which has emphasized the mutual benefits of U.S.-China trade and expressed a willingness to discuss and resolve trade disputes. Looking beyond North America, President Trump has warned the European Union that it could face tariffs unless it significantly increases its purchases of U.S. oil and gas, aiming to reduce the EU's trade deficit with the U.S. The EU, however, has been exploring ways to protect itself from U.S. economic pressures by diversifying its global trade partnerships. A key element of this strategy is a newly signed free trade agreement with Mexico, which strengthens the EU's position in North America. Additionally, the EU has secured a major free trade deal with South American countries, further reinforcing its global trade network. In response to Trump's renewed interest in purchasing Greenland, Denmark has taken steps to reinforce its sovereignty over the territory and strengthen alliances within Europe. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has been actively engaging with European leaders to consolidate support against U.S. pressures. Frederiksen emphasized the importance of European unity, and Danish officials have announced a significant investment in Arctic defense to safeguard the territory's security. Meanwhile, Greenland's Prime Minister, Mute Bjagiet, reiterated the island's desire for self-determination, stating that its people do not wish to become part of the U.S. in the face of these geopolitical and economic tensions. The EU is also grappling with energy challenges, exacerbated by a series of crises, including the halt of Russian energy supplies due to the Ukraine conflict. Rising energy prices and growing public dissatisfaction in Europe have further strained relations with the U.S., particularly in light of Trump's proposed tariffs on European imports. Amid these challenges, the EU is strengthening its ties with other global partners, notably through the modernized EU-Mexico trade agreement, which aims to reduce both parties' reliance on the U.S. and enhance market access. Similarly, the EU has concluded a major trade deal with the Mercosur bloc, encompassing Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. This agreement, which eliminates tariffs on over 90% of goods traded between the EU and Mercosur countries, represents one of the largest free trade zones in the world.
Despite the potential economic benefits of these agreements, the EU faces internal opposition, particularly from agricultural groups concerned about increased competition from South American products. The ratification of these trade deals may take several years and is expected to encounter significant scrutiny. As tensions continue to rise, the EU's strategy to diversify its trade relationships and assert its global role will be crucial in navigating the challenges posed by President Trump's policies. Following World War II, the United States played a pivotal role in shaping Europe's post-war recovery and its future relationships. The foundation for U.S.-EU ties was laid through the Marshall Plan in 1948, which provided essential financial aid to war-torn European countries. This initiative helped stabilize their economies and foster regional cooperation, a key move for long-term peace. In 1951, the U.S. supported the creation of the European Coal and Steel Community, which aimed to integrate critical industries in France and Germany, preventing future conflicts between these nations. By 1954, the EU's predecessor set up a delegation in Washington, D.C., as economic ties between the U.S. and Europe grew stronger. In 1961, this relationship was further formalized with the establishment of the United States mission to the European communities in Brussels, signaling a commitment to political and economic cooperation. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, the United States emerged as a global leader, shaping the post-war order in response to growing Soviet influence. The creation of NATO in 1949 was a direct response to the Soviet Union's expansion into Eastern Europe and the Berlin blockade. NATO, a collective defense pact including the U.S., Canada, and several Western European nations, was designed to counter the Soviet threat. The U.S. not only provided financial support, but also stationed troops in Europe, with General Dwight D. Eisenhower appointed as NATO's first supreme commander. In 1947, President Harry S. Truman introduced the Truman Doctrine, a key shift in U.S. foreign policy. This doctrine pledged support for countries resisting communist subjugation, with Greece and Turkey being the first beneficiaries. The Truman Doctrine set the stage for the broader U.S. containment strategy during the Cold War. The U.S. further supported Europe through the Marshall Plan in 1948, aiming to rebuild European economies and promote democratic institutions, thereby curbing the appeal of communism. This plan was instrumental in aligning Europe with U.S. policies in the early Cold War years. During the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, military cooperation between the U.S. and its NATO allies deepened. NATO's transformation into a comprehensive military organization was further solidified with the creation of the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, SHAPE, in 1951, with Eisenhower as its first leader. However, tensions arose during the Suez Crisis in 1956, when the UK, France, and Israel launched a military intervention in Egypt. The U.S., under President Eisenhower, opposed the action, fearing it would destabilize the region and shift Arab nations toward the Soviet bloc. This event highlighted growing differences between the U.S. and its European allies. The Berlin Crisis of 1961 marked a critical juncture in U.S.-EU relations. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev demanded the withdrawal of Allied forces from West Berlin, threatening to sign a separate peace treaty with East Germany. In response, President John F. Kennedy reaffirmed U.S. commitment to West Berlin, leading to a standoff that showcased NATO's role in maintaining European stability. Throughout this period, the U.S. continued supporting European integration, viewing a unified, economically strong Europe as a key bulwark against communism. U.S. backing of initiatives like the European Economic Community reflected this strategic interest. The Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975, became a point of contention between the U.S. and its European allies. While the U.S. escalated its involvement, many European nations, including France, were reluctant to support the intervention. This divergence reflected broader differences in foreign policy and concerns over the U.S.'s approach to global conflicts. The collapse of the Bretton Woods system in the early 1970s led to currency instability, particularly affecting European economies. In response, European leaders sought to reduce dependence on the US dollar, eventually creating the European Monetary System, EMS, in 1979. The EMS aimed to stabilize exchange rates and enhance monetary cooperation among European nations, signaling growing independence in European economic policy. During the Reagan administration, both the U.S. and Europe focused on free market policies, aligning with Europe's push for a single market under the Single European Act of 1986. However, trade disputes, particularly over agricultural subsidies, highlighted ongoing economic. With the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, the U.S. and EU realigned their relationship toward greater economic collaboration and peacekeeping efforts. The 1990 Transatlantic Declaration formalized this new relationship, emphasizing shared values like democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. In 1995, the new Transatlantic Agenda, NTA, was launched, focusing on global peace, democracy, environmental challenges, and trade expansion. This marked a shift from mere consultations to coordinated joint action on global issues. In recent years, trade tensions between the U.S. and the EU, along with other major partners like Canada and China, have escalated, potentially leading to significant economic consequences. Retaliatory tariffs or trade barriers could disrupt the U.S. economy, especially in sectors like technology, automotive, pharmaceuticals, and agriculture. Such disruptions could raise production costs, reduce competitiveness, and exacerbate inflation in the U.S. This growing trade conflict may push the EU and other nations to strengthen their strategic autonomy, reducing reliance on U.S. imports and exploring alternative trade agreements. Countries like China and Canada may deepen ties with other regions, further isolating the U.S. If the U.S. continues its protectionist policies, it risks weakening its global trade influence and could face economic challenges due to its dependence on imports. The coordinated response from countries affected by U.S. tariffs could reshape the global economic order, posing long-term consequences for the U.S. economy. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your time. If you found this content valuable, please like, subscribe, and stay connected with our community. Your support means a lot to us.